welcome our unofficial mascot, Mr. Christian effing Bale. The crowd goes wild.
Hello, Erin.
Hi, Christian. You're wearing your
It's
birthday
all the
hat.
Erin's and the what hat? I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, I messed up.
I'm sorry. What hat?
Party
It's
hat.
her hat. It's her party
It
hat.
is just
Party
a party
hat.
hat. Yes, that features my face in different angles from different films.
Hello and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. Yes, this is your host. I promise it's still Erin Marlowe. I still have, if you listen to our pop culture episode, I still have my sexy voice. I'm still recovering from this cold. So, but it does give me that sexy voice. So, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you get to see, I do look a little sickly. I didn't really put much makeup on, so you're stuck with my sickliness, but you get the sexy voice. But more importantly than that, I'm going to stop talking about that now. Is we are kicking off what I think is the best month of podcasting, and that is Christian fucking Bale Month. Ooh, this is the 4th year we have done this, and it's been so much fun. And I every year I get so excited to be talking about this man for a month. And we will, of course, be doing a bonus episode in October talking about The Bride. And then we will be doing Christian Bale trivia on probably January 30th. Have to confer with Carla and somebody else too to make sure that works, because it's all about them. And I feel like I said June. I meant January 30th. So anyway, we are going to kick it off with a movie that we have been trying to cover for quite a few years now. And every time something happens, we have to postpone it. And we're finally covering it. And that is the 1998 film, Velvet Goldmine. So I'm very, very, very excited to talk about this movie. This was my pick. And so before we get into it, before I tell you what the movie's about, give you a couple trigger warnings. I'm going to introduce my lovely panel. First up, she is here every Christian Bale month. We can't have Christian fucking Bale month without her. She is my unofficial co-host, just like Christian Bale is my unofficial mascot for this whole month. So Carla from Behead, hi, and happy Christian Bale month.
Happy Christian Bale Month to you and to all who celebrate. And to those who don't, I am sorry that you're missing out.
It's true. It should be a national holiday.
Yes.
I don't think Christian would like that much, but
It's okay. He doesn't have to know, just the rest of the world.
Yeah. He'll be like, what's going on?
Nothing, man. Nothing.
Starts appearing on the calendar. He's like, what is this?
Why is my picture? No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Christian.
Yeah. And also joining us for this one is Tiff. Hello, Tiff.
Hi. Hey. Hello. I haven't been on a Christian effing Bale month episode in 2 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, you were on. Yeah, you were on
Prestige.
Prestige. That was the first year, so 3 years.
3 years. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I'm back.
Yay.
So happy Christian effing Bale month.
We should make cards. We should make cards in our Redbubble store.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Great idea.
Happy Balemas to you.
Yes.
Yes. But before we get into talking about our thoughts on Christian's performance, which will be the first thing we're going to talk about, of course, I'm going to tell you what Velvet Goldmine is. So Velvet Goldmine, which was directed by Todd Haynes and written by Todd Haynes, and also the story was by James Lyons. And it is about, in 1984, British journalist Arthur Stewart investigates the career of 1970s glam superstar Brian Slade, who was heavily influenced in his early years by hard-living and rebellious American singer Kurt Wilde, Also, a little trivia I'm going to throw in here about the script. Most of the dialogue in here is from Oscar Wilde, in case people didn't know that. Oscar Wilde is very much part of this movie. So this stars Ewan McGregor as Kurt Wilde, the person that I always want more of in my life, Jonathan Rhys Meyers as Brian Slade. Every time I see him, I go, I miss seeing this guy. Christian Bale, of course. And I know I didn't list him first. I'm sorry. I'm going in order on TV. As Arthur Stewart.
Disappointed. I think you got to start over, Erin, because somebody's going to get very upset about this.
It's okay. I'm going to keep going. I'll hear about it later. A very young Christian Bale, by the way. Toni Collette, the always fantastic Toni Collette as Mandy Slade, who is Brian Slade's wife. Eddie Izzard as Jerry Devine, and a bunch of other wonderful people in this movie. So what we always, let me give some trigger warning, sorry. So trigger warning for homophobia, trigger warning for drug use, trigger warning for mental illness, trigger warning for abusive behaviors and treating mental illness. And by that, I mean like shock treatment. Also trigger warning for suicide. Is this the movie I wanted to give a trigger warning for suicidal behavior? No, I'm thinking of something else. I'm sorry.
I know. I was like, I was like, did I watch the wrong movie?
It was the movie I watched right after this today.
Oh,
sorry, everybody.
I think this is just like trigger warning for hard living. Hard living.
Hard glam rock
1970s hard living.
Yeah, that glam rock hard living.
Yes.
I don't know if it's trigger for you, but orgies. I don't know if that's triggering for anybody. There's a lot of explicit sexual content in this movie. So since it is Christian fucking Bale month, we always have to start with talking about Christian Bale. So Carla, was this your first time watching this movie?
it was.
That's what I thought. So
Yes.
I'm very excited to hear your thoughts, because I was like, when I was watching it today, I was like, oh yeah, this is Carla's first time watching this movie. So what are your thoughts on young Christian Bale in this movie as Arthur Stewart? Young Christian.
Baby Christy B. Oh my gosh. So precious. So young. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, he's always had the chops. You know, we talked about his performance in
Newsies. Empire of the Sun.
In Empire of the Sun, for sure, we talked positively about his performance.
Oh yeah, Newsies we were. That's right.
We weren't quite so generous in talking about Newsies, but you know, let's forget about that for a moment. Let's forget that that existed for just a brief moment, so we can talk about the understated beauty of his performance in Bella Goldmine. And I think that goes for most of the actors in this movie. I think that pretty much everybody, it seemed like I don't know if like passion project is the right word for it, but it's something that everybody poured a lot of themselves into. It seems like to me, just as a viewer. And one of the things that I liked about his performance is that it runs the gamut from innocent, wide-eyed baby boy discovering himself and figuring out his place in the world, especially without his parents, and then, you know, for reasons that we'll get into, but then moving on to, you know, being his own person and finding his community, and then eventually to what looks like kind of like sad sack kind of person in his whatever age he's supposed to be, which is like kind of the meat of the movie, where he's a journalist and he's, you know, kind of hanging around doorways, listening in on conversations, potential pitches, and piping in about long since obscure artists. But he is so, I mean, he's just charismatic and very eye-catching it's not just a looks thing. It's also his performance draws you to him. But there are some particular moments that like really stand out for me where I'm just like, whoa, like what is happening to this character? And I feel like it's intentional, but also it's kind of jarring because it you know, it kind of pulls you out of the performance a little bit. Um, on the whole, it's great, and I really enjoyed it. But there were a couple of moments where I was like, huh. There's a part where he's sitting in a train and the doors slide closed, and his face is just so just it's so stone faced. It was like pre Patrick Bateman kind of, you know, like blank stare, like dead eyes kind of thing. And I was like, sir, like, let's calm down. Nobody on this train needs to die. And then there's a moment later where he's laughing and it's almost like a scary laughter. And I'm like, what happened? Like, did I miss something? Like, I even rewound it because I was like, did I miss something? And like the 2 seconds that I blinked, like, okay, nobody should be blinking for 2 seconds. If you're constantly blinking for 2 seconds, there's probably something wrong with you. But like in the nanosecond that I blinked, what happened? But on the whole, I loved them, and it was such a it's such a grounded role in a very fantastical world because everything happening in the flashbacks around him is just it almost feels like Rocket Man in how, you know, kind of almost campy it is, even though it's not. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a fully leaning into the glam rock era, which is pretty much the only way that you should be talking about that era of music. Should be a bit campy, a bit out there, a bit whimsical. But his performance in the parts where he is in that era, they do feel like, you know, like it's supposed to be like he's a kid kind of absorbing the happenings and falling in love with the aesthetic and all of that. And that moment when in that one concert when they announced that it's like the death of glam rock, and his face kind of looks, he's so crestfallen because he's like, I just got here, you guys. Like, I just got here and you're shutting it down. Like, he looked so sad. But I think that was like beautiful and perfect, you know, and it's something that happens to a lot of people in life that you finally figure out who you are. And then the moment is passing, like, you know, that particular trend is dying and, you know, nobody does that anymore. It's like the personification of that feeling. But as always, he's fantastic and luminous and so pretty.
Yeah, he's so pretty in this movie. He's so, and I don't mean that as like an ogling thing. He's just so pretty. Everybody's so pretty in this movie, though.
Like, for real. Like,
Just
I don't know if they gave them like some I don't know, some 1970s glam powder to put in their bodies to really like make them feel the scene, but they were sparkling from the inside out.
It's
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
It's called cocaine.
I was gonna say angel dust, but you know.
Oh my God.
I remember distinctly in, I think it was like 4th or 5th grade, that I remember one of my teachers standing in front of us talking about drugs. And it's like, if anybody comes to you and tells you that you should try angel dust, be careful of angel dust because it's not as pleasant as it sounds. It's actually a bad thing called PCP. And I was like, ma'am, you sound very knowledgeable about this topic. Drop the lore.
Drop the lore. There was a really quick, because I don't want to go on full tangent, but there was a after school special that I wrote about in my diary when I was really young watching, and it was about PCP, and it showed so trigger warning for self-harm, but it showed a woman taking, I think this was Helen Hunt, or Helen Hunt was in it, and
Yes.
She took it and jumped out the window and took
I
some
mean-
glass and was like cutting herself because she was on PCP. And they're
Yes,
like,
I
this is what
remember that.
happens. And I wrote in my diary, oh my God, this is so scary. I know people, like adults that smoke. What if they start doing PCP because they smoke cigarettes? So,
Cigarettes
anyway.
is a gateway drug. Tobacco is a
yes,
gateway
of course.
drug. Yes.
Of course.
The natural
Um,
progression.
Yeah. So, Tiff, this wasn't your first time seeing this, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
I've watched
that's what
this movie so many times. I went to it just full stop. I went through an entirely, like, I'm talking about obsessive Jonathan Rhys Meyers phase in my
Yeah.
like mid-20s. I mean, when I say obsessive, I was watching everything that I could get my hands on for Jonathan Rhys Meyers. I'm talking ridiculous things, like ridiculously obscure things. I was trying to get it. I was on like eBay trying to get like VHS things that he was in, like when he was just a BB, a bebe actor when he was like 18, 19, and it was only on VHS. Ridiculous. Okay, so mid-20s Tiffany, you were really ridiculous. I just like to say that.
But I understand. So, like I said in the beginning, every time I see him, I go, "Oh, I want more of him."
He's got that.
so-
I will say, well, no, I'll move on from that because when we talk about his character, I'll go into more. Christian as Arthur Stewart, he's just so innocent when we first, when they do that first flashback to him. And I think he's so innocent, and then his family is just so blah. They're just so whack. They are. They remind me of, Elton's family in Rocket Man. There's so many similarities to that, and I know it's the early 70s, and the homophobia is like on level 20, and his family just really leans into it. And he's just such a nice kid. Like he's just a nice little teenager who wants to listen to records and just wants to be. And they just knock him down and just, chisel at his little personality, which is so devastating to his development. And I think for Arthur's character, the journey is just as important as the destination. And I think Velvet Goldmine does a really solid job of showing how he gets to that point in life where he's this journalist in 84, and he's so cynical about things. The cynicism that he's showing is partly because of how his family treated him in the early 70s, and then the only small amount of time that he got where he found his community and where he found the people that really just embraced and accepted him, and this fun time that he had for this very, very short period. This very short period where he was happy. And when that went away, it's like, what do I have left? What do I do at this point in time? And then we see him in 84, like what Carla said, he's kind of skulking in doorways, trying to find out, well, what the heck happened to Brian Slade? Where did Brian Slade go? And he's, talking to people who, were involved with this, and they're like, I don't know where he went. he just died. We have no idea. We don't know how he died, but he died. So I do like the performance because although to me, I don't feel like he was really believable as a teenager, and that's just me. Like,
it did have a little bit of like Dexter as teenager flashbacks.
Yes, it was. There was that very much an aesthetic of, okay, this is like an almost 30-year-old man trying to play a teenager. That's the feeling that I got. I mean, I'm trying to think how old he actually was at that period of time. He was probably in his early 20s, mid 20s. See, this was 98. How long ago was that?
I should know Christian's full birthday by heart, but
Do
I don't
know
have
what
it
his
for me.
birthday is? I don't know when his
Well,
birthday is.
January 30th, but I don't know the year
Okay.
I'll look it up. Keep going.
Okay. So that was one thing I think that kind of, I won't say it bothered me, but it kind of draws the eye in. I think at times it's like, you don't really look like a teenager to me. Like, I don't know if you're believable as like a 17, 18-year-old, but I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it slide. So, because then as grown Arthur, he looks so mature. He's, very, like Carla mentioned, he's very grounded, but he's very drawn, and he's withdrawn. And I don't know. We don't know what Arthur's doing at that point in time besides the journalism thing. We don't know if he has a social life, if he has friends, but it feels very much like his life is his work and his work is his life, which is really sad. If you think about it, that's not good for anybody. That's not healthy for anybody, but it's a really, really solid performance, because it's very removed when he is an adult. It's so removed from that, like you said, that sprinkling of fairy dust, that fairy dust filter of the early 70s. When you get to that 80s, there's no excitement about it. It's very dark. Like the cinematography is really interesting in this because, that 80s aesthetic is not there. What we come to think of as 80s aesthetic, neon colors, bright pops, outlandish clothes, shoulder pads up to here for the women, and white pastel suits for the men. And we don't have that with him. And everything is very muted, which I think is interesting because I think that shows the transition from his 70s persona where he found his community to now where we don't know if he has a community. It doesn't feel like he does. So really great performance though. Good job, Christian.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was 20. He was born in 1974, so he would have been 24 when this was released, but he probably was like 23 or 22 when it was made. So yeah, I as always, I think Christian Bale is really good. And he has, I think, the hardest job in the movie because he has the most understated performance of anyone in the main group I'm talking about, because of course his parents are even more understated. And one of the scenes that hits me the most is when he's sitting in the living room with his parents and they're watching TV and he's seeing he's seeing a performance, a glam rock performance. I believe it was with Brian Slade, and he's watching, and in his mind, in his fantasy, he says, "That's me, that's me." And it's so heartbreaking because then immediately you realize he's not saying that, but it's like watching this person who feels so repressed and like he can't be genuinely himself and seeing himself reflected. And that's why, once again, representation is so important in media. And he sees himself reflected and he gets to say, "That's me." And he's like a little kid because he finds so much joy in being able to actually say who he is. But then it's followed up with sorrow that he can't really share that with the people that are supposed to love him no matter what. And a Rocket Man comparison is really interesting because I see that a lot with that, especially with the parents and also with the fantastical world in this movie. And so he's kind of like, he serves in a lot of respects as the audience for the movie too, because he's learning things. And it's a very silent, quiet performance filled with so much longing. And I think it wasn't just, he's so repressed in the 80s. And I think part of that is that he went to a concert to watch this person, Brian Slade, who was part of what awakened him to who he really was. And he goes, and I should have added this to trigger warnings, and he, for violence, for gun violence, and he watches this performance that was actually fake of him being assassinated on stage. And he sees the person, and he knows it's coming, and it happens. And I think even though it was proven to be a hoax, I think for him, that was like the death of the hope that he could be who he wanted to be. And that was really the real downfall of glam rock in this world. And so it's very sad to see him as this reporter who is basically forgetting who he was. And it's interesting when you see some of the flashbacks and he was in this world where he's hearing these stories from people and he was actually there, but they don't know that or don't remember him. And also my other favorite scene with him is his final scene with Kurt Wilde, with Ewan McGregor's character. And when they sit there and there's this pendant, this green pendant that the legend is it was worn by Oscar Wilde, and it was passed down to Jack Ferry, who's another singer in this, another performer in here, and then passed to Kurt. And then Kurt passes it to Arthur. And it's such a beautiful scene, especially later after Kurt leaves in the back of the bar where they're talking. And then you also get flashes of an intimate experience that he had with Kurt on the rooftop. And it's just so beautiful because I think those are the times when you not only really see who Arthur is, but you also see who Kurt really is. And just these two really beautiful artists. I think Arthur is an artist as well, and beautiful creative people who are just outcasts and don't fit in anywhere, and finding each other and linking and finding that thing that's not, doesn't hinge on the fame. It doesn't hinge on anything like that. It just hinges on finding another person that shares a piece of who you are. And that's why I love their scenes. I think their scenes are so great. And I hadn't watched this movie in decades. And so it was such an interesting experience. It was like watching it for the first time. And so it was really beautiful watching Christian in this and as a young performer. And I think too often people criticize Christian and say he's too loud and too method and too not natural enough. And I think watching performances like this, and there are quite a few others I could name, you can see that's not true. It's just depending on the character he's playing, because he is able to get quiet and silent moments in this, and where you see his eyes and you see just this longing of this person who just so badly wants to belong, and then witnessing the death of that possibility. And then maybe what you hope for is that he's finding the birth of that possibility again. So, yeah. Okay. So, Carla, what are your overall thoughts on the movie as a whole and how it handles, since it's talking about the glam rock genre, how it handles that?
I love this movie. It was so good, and the music was fantastic. I loved most of the songs in this movie. I was like jamming in my room watching this, and I was folding laundry while also watching the movie because I'm a multitasking lady. But I just, there were probably mismatched socks because I was so very busy grooving to the movie. I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's not how we fold things. No. It was so good. And I liked that it spans so. First of all, like I started watching the movie and I had to like double and triple check because I was like, wait, am I watching the right movie? Because it starts out about being about Oscar Wilde. No. So I was like, wait a second. Okay, I know it, and I even like clicked back and I was like, no, it says Velvet Goldmine. So what's going on? I go back in and it's like baby Oscar Wilde, like Moses being delivered to the stoop of a rich person. So I'm like, wait a second. Okay, this actually seems really interesting, but can I bookmark it and come back to it? No. If the movie starts out like that and you're very, very confused, it's okay. It is still about glam rock and it still has Christian Bale in it. Don't worry, just hang tight for like 5 minutes. But that first bit of the movie honestly, it felt a little bit disjointed from the rest of it. The style was just, to me, like so different from the rest of the movie that it felt a little unnecessary. I get why they put it in there, but I think that just from a cinematographic perspective, they could have approached that a little bit differently to make it a more cohesive piece of the narrative, and to not make people think that they're watching the wrong movie. But then once it really gets going, and it gets going really fast after that, you're just kind of in its grasp, because the story, it moves and moves and moves and moves. It doesn't really have a moment where you're bored and just like, oh my God, they're still singing. No, the singing is great. Enjoy the singing. Oh my God, I met somebody who was not into musicals.
Yeah, my sister's not into musicals.
Yeah, no, but look, in real life, I met somebody who's not into musicals.
She said real life though. like Erin's sister is not in real life. She lives in a different dimension.
No, in my current life of people with to whom I have been in close physical proximity within 10 feet, I met a person who is not into musicals, and I immediately stopped speaking to them. Well, not quite, because I would have been so rude, but I just, kept smiling and nodding, and then walked away and was like, never again. But anyway, if you don't enjoy musicals, maybe don't watch this movie. It won't be for you, because there are so many musical interludes, but they're so important to the plot of the movie. They're so important to the story that I think that the story would have suffered without them, because not only is there that like magical element that, like I said, it's like Rocket Man, that you're kind of being transported, you're being catapulted from point to point in the story through this music and through these performances, but you're also being taken on Arthur's journey of self-discovery, because Christian Bale, he's not on the poster. He is not in the top, he's not top billed in the movie, but his character is very important to the crux of the message of the story, which is that the theater involved in celebrity, not in music, not in art, but in celebrity, is harmful to the artists, to art, and to our consumers. So when you have something as huge as like this otherworldly, very openly bisexual, very famous artist proudly being himself in front of the world, and you have a young person like Arthur immediately identifying with him and wanting desperately to share that with people, but not feeling safe to do so, and then you have him pull what turns out to be a hoax, that then it calls into question everything else about that artist. What else was a lie? What else was for publicity? Was the bisexuality just like to be scandalous and shocking, just to titillate people and to scare people into, thinking, oh, my kids are consuming this horrible, evil stuff, and the kids being like, oh, we want to consume stuff that our parents think is horrible and evil. So, from that point to way before to now to the future, look at celebrity, look at the circus, the theater of celebrity, and you have to become a more savvy consumer of art so that you're getting what you actually need out of it instead of what you're being told is there. And it's so unfortunate because you have so many, really talented and genuine people out there who are bearing their souls to you and who are giving you a part of themselves. But because we know about, publicity relationships, we know about paparazzi being called by the people that paparazzi is following, we know all of these things. So how often can we trust these images that are out there? And you have, you know, like the Chapel Roans of the world, that it's like she seems very sincere and she seems very genuine, and she seems to be a very real person who just happens to be an artist trying to live through being a celebrity. And then there's the whole question of like, okay, but is it an act? I am not opining one way or another about Chapel Roan and her genuineness being an act. I'm just saying that the machine of celebrity creates those doubts.
Yeah.
So and to set this story within glam rock, I think is very smart, because it in and of itself has a lot of artifice and a lot of glitz and a lot of glitter and a lot of distractions from what is really in there. A lot of the music is, you know, there's some very overt sexuality in it, but there's also sometimes like depth within it that, you know, it's the you don't want to listen, you just want to dance moments of music where you're, you know, it's like 20 years later and you're listening to the lyrics and you're like, oh, I've just been dancing to this tune and thinking that it's about this, but nope, it's about something very different altogether. And, you know, it's not unique to glam rock, but I think that it's one of those genres of music that gets dismissed because it's so loud and brash and, you know, I guess, quote unquote, trashy. But there's still art. It is still art. The performances are still art. The lyrics can still be art. And to set a story that is about sussing out what is art and what is bull, it makes perfect sense to do it this way. Now, the one thing that I thought was really interesting in the movie is that these stars, you know, Kurt and what was his name? Brian. Kurt and Brian, they, you know, their onstage personas could be any number of big time important artists. You know, it's not just Brian Slade and Kurt Wilde. It's also everybody from Elton John to David Bowie and Freddie Mercury. And Kurt Wilde has a lot of Kurt Cobain similarities in a way, from what I saw. Not, you know, just down to the look. It's like Kurt Cobain in glam makeup. So there was just so much of this that was interesting to me as a fan of music and as a fan of critiquing the machine that we're kind of forced to battle as fans.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you loved this movie, because I would have been very sad if you didn't.
Yeah.
Just
No,
because I've been
was
wanting to cover
great.
it for so long.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna watch it again as soon as I can, because like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, what did I miss the first time around? And because it has like so many of those cuts. Oh, and one thing that I wanted to mention, and particularly in the scene set in the 70s, it had a very 70s style jump cuts that feel very like, what the hell is going on right this second? I think a lot of, if you watch the movie version of Jesus Christ Superstar, there are a lot of those like those quick zooms in or zooms outs that are just for effect, that are, you know, they have a purpose, but it's also like, what the hell? Like, we didn't need to do it that way. You know, the lighting, the color, the difference in how diffuse the light was in some scenes versus others. I think it was very cleverly done. I think it's a fantastic movie. It definitely had its. It's not a perfect movie. There were definitely things that it could have done better, but overall, it was so good.
Yeah. So, Tiff.
So I think the only parallel that Todd Haynes could have done from glam rock or glitter rock would have been something like disco based. That's the only thing that would have worked. It wouldn't have worked like with punk rock. I think that's a little bit too hard edged. So him doing it as this glitter rock kind of very sparkly filter throughout the film, except when, you know, obviously we're based in the 80s, was really smart. That's a really smart take for the entirety of the movie. I like what you said, Carla, mentioning the artifice that goes into celebrity as a whole. Because you see Brian in the late 60s as this like hippie flower child, you know, this brocade coat with the, you know, with the fur around, and he's, you know, strumming his guitar. Yeah, boots with the fur. Not boots with the fur, coat with the fur. Anyway, you know, he's strumming his little guitar, and it's all very peace and love, man, and super, super duper hippie. And a couple years later, he's Maxwell Demon. And it's, you know, this eyeshadow and it's glitter on the eyes, and it's, you know, oh, your cheekbones, darling, your contour, fabulous, you know, and it's sequins and it's over the top. So the change that he makes, that literal 180, is really interesting to me. And that's what I think makes this movie. It's literal velvet Goldmine. It's going from the soft to the hard edge, you know, velvet, very soft, very smooth, to Goldmine, gold, hard, metal, tough, essentially. You know, it can hurt. If you smash against it, you're going to break something. And I think that's, you know, this brittle edge that Brian had that eventually broke him, you know, was the art or artifice, or, you know, the downfall of celebrity, I should say. I think a lot of musicians, a lot of artists go through this. I remember reading an article about Pink. And when Pink came on the scene, she was very much R&B. And that was set up by L.A. Reid, you know, by her label, LaFace at the time. They decided that, okay, well, we have this white girl who could sing, who has like kind of this smoky kind of tune that would really play well like on urban stations. So we're going to give her this shortcut. We're going to make it hot pink. And we're going to make everything she does R&B. And what she said later in this article was that wasn't her style anyway. When she, you know, gave them her demo, it was very much the slight more popish sound, more balladier kind of sound, but not R&B balladier. The ballads that you hear her doing like in the 2010s, those types of things. And she moved away from that, you know, from that R&B edge but you saw what her management and what her label had her do. Same thing in Velvet Goldmine with Jerry Devine saying, okay, Brian, we have to make you over, baby. We have to give you a look, and we have to give you a sound, and we have to do something that is completely different than anything else that's out there right now. We have to make you shine. This is what it's going to be. And did he really want that? Yes. Did he want the fame? Sure. But did he want to completely change who he was at his core as a musician? Which I think is a really interesting take. I really do. I really love that. I really like how they shot this movie. The jump facts, the non-linear move of this movie doesn't feel jumpy to me. And I don't always like things that are non-linear. It kind of bugs me at times because I think the editing in it can be a little skip hoppish and it doesn't really flow. But I think in this case, it actually does. I don't really have a problem with it. And it had been a while, like you said, Erin, it had been a while since you watched it. It had been a while since I watched it too. And when I was rewatching it, I was like, it's held up pretty well. The performances are still pretty good. I still really like the dynamics between the characters. And if anything, Ewan is always going to give you some full frontal nudity. If anything, he's always going to give you that. If there's a movie with Ewan in it that's not Star Wars based, he's going to give you some full frontal.
The man just likes to show it all.
It's like all or nothing. It's Disney or the whole Monty.
Yes. And they're like, Ewan, we need you. Not a problem.
No, Ewan, that's not what we were going to ask for.
But it's still not a problem.
It's just there. We have a camera.
So, but I really do like, when I saw it at first, I did think, I was like, Kurt, your look is a little too 90s grunge for me. That was one thing that I kind of was like, I don't know, but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me like as much as it did previously. Like previously I was like, this is very grungy to me, but it doesn't bother me anymore. I've gotten more mellow in my old age, so.
Excuse me, and a fun little trivia about the full frontal scene with Ewan McGregor. This is how much Ewan McGregor must love to show up. That was not in the script. He was just supposed to moon the audience. Okay, he's just supposed to moon him, and he just went, no.
No, let's give them more.
I'm gonna give
Ewan
them
McGregor,
the
ladies
full.
and gentlemen, and non-binaries. Ewan McGregor.
Yes, he just is, which is cool. He's very comfortable in his skin and his body, and I'm we'll be talking about the performances here in a minute, and my mom might be listening to this episode. I don't think my mom would like this movie though. My mom loves Ewan McGregor like so dang much. Like she has like a huge crush on him, and she loves him. But Mom, I don't think you'd like this movie. It's not putting the movie down. It's just I don't think you'd like it. But you have a crush on him, so if you want, he's full frontal in this movie. Anyway, and his character is actually modeled a lot off of Iggy Pop, and that's how he modeled a lot of his performance. And so Iggy Pop is kind of from this time, so that's a little bit where that, and especially the when he does do the full frontal, he was inspired by the antics of Iggy Pop. And if you watch Iggy Pop performing live, it's very similar to what Ewan does in that scene.
I straight up forgot that Iggy Pop existed. I'm so sorry. I'm naming all of these other artists, and I'm like, they're not even crossing my mind.
It's okay.
It wasn't in my mind. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Iggy.
No. And yes, and both Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and Ewan McGregor sang their own songs. However, some of Rhys-Meyers' songs were overdubbed by Radiohead lead singer Tom York, just in case people are wondering. I was really wondering, since I hadn't seen this movie in forever, and I always remembered loving it. It was one of those that, like, a lot of my friends loved this movie in the 90s. It felt kind of like these would have been our people back then. And so that's why we were really into it. And I was like, I wonder if it's going to hold up. And it does. I was so grateful it did. I was so into this. It felt like the first time watching it. And I think, like has been mentioned, it would not work if it wasn't set within glam rock and within that world, because it makes the fantastical elements of this movie work really well. And also the almost music video moments in a way work really well. And there's so much beauty in this. The cinematography is so beautiful in this movie. I mean, even like the orgy scenes, there's a couple of orgy scenes in here, and they're shot so beautifully. They're just really beautiful. And like we said, everybody is beautiful in this movie. So it's a lot of great, wonderful things to look at. And the costuming and I mean, the costumes and the hair and the makeup is incredible. And Jonathan Rhys-Meyers has cheekbones for days. People out there who are American Horror Story fans know that quote. But he has cheekbones for days. His cheekbones are so incredible.
They are gorgeous. They are absolutely gorgeous. And those crazy eyes, man, those crazy eyes.
Yeah.
He's got that Cillian Murphy kind of aesthetic. Like,
yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. But I think this movie is such a great homage to that music and to the music of that era. And it's also such an interesting look at how fame can destroy you and destroy relationships. And I think for Brian Slade, what happened is he got so wrapped up in this image that was created for him that he lost touch with who he really was inside. And he became wrapped up in the image and not the person, because he was really in love with Kurt. They were in love with each other. And he just couldn't get away from the fame long enough to realize how much he loved Kurt. And for Kurt, it was so much of, he wanted to be so real in his artistry and in his music, but he got lost in the fact that, first of all, he underwent horrible treatment, with shock therapy, and he was also a drug addict and went through all of that kind of stuff and lost the love of his life. And he, I think, always wanted to just hang on to the art and didn't get caught up in the commerce of it. And because Brian did, they lost their way with each other. Because there's also just a deep love story in this movie as well. And I just, it's interesting too. Apologies. It's interesting too, because this is also, of course, a look at bisexuality and sexuality in general, and being open and free with that. And it's interesting that they talk about how the 60s didn't really completely do what they said they were going to do. I am so sorry, everybody. But they said the 60s didn't completely do what they were going to do. And this was going to be the real sexual revolution. And I think that's so true. And you really see that in here. And that's why I just think it's so beautifully done. And it's such a love story between the characters, but also to this music that helped free people and helped people be who they were and see who they were. And I just think that's the beautiful part of it. And I love the music in this movie. Oh my God, the music in this movie is so great. It's so wonderful. I would love to see this movie on stage, actually. And I was thinking that while I was watching it.
Oh my God. I don't know what I would do with myself.
But I think it's absolutely fantastic. And for those listening, we are going to cut to a break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about the amazing performances in this movie. I am going to pop in a cough drop. I apologize, everybody. I'm hanging in there, but we will be right back. Okay, and we are back. So we have talked about Christian Bale's performance, but there are some other fantastic performances in this film as well. So, Carla.
I thought I had muted my microphone, and then it turns out that I unmuted it. So, if you happen to hear a little burp, no, you didn't.
So, Carla, what are your thoughts on the other performances in this movie?
You heard nothing, people. You heard nothing.
I am about to gas up everybody in the cast.
Oh my God. That was pretty good.
just great performances all around. I too have a crush on Ewan McGregor, and like when some of these movies, like when I watch them, I don't look for the cast ahead of time because I want to be pleasantly surprised by who pops up. And I was delighted to see my longtime crush Ewan McGregor in this film, and looking so flipping hot, like unbearably hot. Like, I'm sorry, but the man could get it then. He could get it now. He'd probably get it in 15 years too. Just chef's kiss. Anyway, but we're here to talk about the performances, not my constant stream of crushes for random white dudes. Let's talk about my random stream of crushes on random white ladies, because Toni Collette, as always, is fantastic and fabulous and so gorgeous. Like those scenes, or rather that long scene in the bar, where she has to it's just like an oversized black sweatshirt on, and it's just like very simple and elegant. Oh, beautiful. But also a huge contrast between that character at that point in her life and who she was earlier in the movie when they were at the height of Brian's fame. Because you have Mandy when Brian first starts out, which, yeah, absolutely, like that more like folky kind of hippie vibe. I really like that song that he was playing, that those rude concert goers were like, we don't like this because it's not, it doesn't rock hard enough. Like,
They were really mean.
They were so mean.
They were so mean and so rude.
Where are the ushers to escort this young man out? That is inappropriate behavior. Yes. Don't be rude in the theater, even if it's just really like a little stage. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. But the relationship between Mandy and Brian, honestly, it was a bit boring because it's just the formulaic thing of like, oh, they start out really strong, then another person pops in the picture, and suddenly but she's cool with it because she's a cool girl who doesn't mind and feels very secure in her man going off with other people, until she suddenly doesn't, because she spots the one person who can make it all go away. And then there's naturally like a very loud "I'm divorcing you" scene, and then the utter husk of a woman that she becomes later. Like, it's very formulaic in that end, and it really does a disservice to Mandy. And but it's honestly like just in almost every movie about a male celebrity, where they have the wife who is steadfast and loving and devoted and does anything that he asks for to follow his dream, and she's right there with him. And same fate. And it's boring, like I said. But Toni Collette, luminous, amazing, fantastic. Every scene that she's in, she gives Mandy an additional dimension that probably isn't on the page, just by the choices she makes as an actor. And I like the way that she flows with the times, as far as, like stylistically. And of course, there's the hair and makeup department, not negating their art, but it's also, with period outfits, you can't let it wear you have to wear it, and you have to inhabit the character as a person wearing these clothing, and these are their choices. This is what they would wear. And I totally believed Mandy in everything she wore, except what she wore to the divorce scene, because, it's like the typical, like, I'm getting into my middle age, and now I have middle-aged lady hair and middle-aged lady clothing, middle-aged divorced lady, coming in with my middle-aged heels, and, I'm going to be really cool about it, and they're going to completely lose it because my louse of a spouse is just sitting there being naked with somebody that I'm supposed to be cool about. And then there's like the newcomer who now suddenly doesn't look anything like when they first hired her. Anyway, no shade to Shannon, but I didn't like your lady. But she really makes the most of that role, which again, two-dimensional, and let's face it, these are men writing and directing. It's you can't really expect a whole lot a lot of the time with that combo. But what I liked, the reason that I liked her so much in that bar scene is that she gives Mandy like this very quiet dignity so that she doesn't look like a washed out loser of a woman, like the movie I think kind of wants you to feel like everybody in Brian's wake was left a husk of their former selves. But Mandy seems to have, like, she's grudgingly giving this interview to this man, but she is also, when she puts herself back in the mind frame of who she was back then, it makes her sad and it makes her rueful, but she has moved on from there and she has become a different, better version of herself. And that's what I feel through Toni Collette's acting. Eddie Izzard, I love Eddie Izzard in general, but she was really just great in this role because it's like in so many of these pop star, music star, manager roles, like it's the same thing. It's like first you're rooting for them because they're there to take your star to the next level, and then you kind of are like, oh, you slimy little weasel, you're a horrible human being. But she just makes this role so much more fun than it has any right to be. And I think it's because Eddie herself is so like her stage persona is also very, like larger than life. So it's also funny to see her just like in this very, traditional, very male role in a very male world of managing, which is, I'm not even talking about music, just general, like being a manager of any kind is a world largely inhabited by men. But she brings like a twist of devious fun into it, where you kind of want to punch this character, Jerry, but at the same time you can't help but being like, but I don't really hate Jerry all that much. Shannon, I already talked about what a skank she is, so we won't talk about her anymore.
Hated it.
With her crappy haircut. Like, go to hell. Stand your face. Jonathan Rhys-Davies as Brian Slade. Oh, so good. And another person that you kind of want to punch in the face, but you feel more for them because it's funny that we're getting this very interesting movie and you come away from it with so much to think about and talk about, but you still didn't get a very deep insight into these characters. You don't get a lot of insight into Brian or Kurt. It's a glancing portrayals of them, which I think works great with this movie. I think it's again, like the flash and distraction of glam rock. And I think that's best exemplified in that one moment where you kind of see them through like this gauzy film as they're sharing like this very tender moment when Brian is giving Kurt that gem. And, you don't know what they're talking about. You don't know what they're saying to each other, or if Kurt really gets the significance of this thing that Brian is giving him. Like there's so much that's just implied and in subtext and all of that. But you're not getting a true picture into Brian's thoughts. You're getting all of this secondhand through his ex-wife, through the manager that he ditched, and through the vague recollections of a fan who feels betrayed by him. So you're not necessarily getting the most, maybe not the fairest assessment of this person's character or of who they are or why they are who they are. And that makes for a fascinating approach to storytelling, because these are purportedly the main characters of the film, but you come away from it knowing nearly nothing about them. And the same thing with Kurt. And Ewan McGregor, I've already talked about how much I'm in love with him, but that's not what I'm talking about now. Right now, I'm talking about his performance here and how he just, unlike Brian, Kurt just exuded this sensuality and this abandon, and just that. Now that I remember that Iggy Pop existed, that lust for life. Yes, I do remember a song of his. But he has all of those very glam rock exemplary kind of touches to that character, and also a very awful backstory, of an agonizingly traumatic backstory. And that informs a bit of his character, but not enough to really lead you from point A to point B. These are just two things that happened. We don't know what really happened in between. We don't really know much about what happened to him after either. We just know these points at which Arthur is meeting him, when he has, he sees him a couple of times, and then they have their sexy moment on the rooftop. And then at the very end, that beautiful scene where Kurt passes on what to me feels like a cursed object to Arthur, because I mean, Oscar Wilde didn't exactly have the easiest life. He had a cushy life, but he didn't have an easy life. And Brian also certainly didn't. Kurt definitely didn't. And Arthur, we already know that his past was just, with his family, was absolutely devastating. We don't know what his present is like, but we suspect it's not great. So who knows about the future? But Ewan McGregor, at every phase of this character, that last part where he seems so subdued, it doesn't feel out of place with the rest of his character. It just feels like a natural progression. Just like more like he burnt out early. Like it's one of those things where like the flame was too bright too soon, and he's just getting through life at this point. Especially, he has this, for whatever reason, he and Brian had this huge falling out. They break up, or whatever you want to call it. They don't speak again, but do they speak again? Like it's a question of like, how much does this man know about this new, stone guy who is a quote unquote new rocker, who is really Brian Slade, who has never really gone anywhere. He's just kind of been, plotting for his comeback. And the parents sucked. They were great. The actors who played them were great, because you hated them. There wasn't really much room. Like for the mom, I think you kind of maybe felt a little bit of like, not sympathy, but she made like a meek attempt to go and stand up for her son when her husband ran up there to like scream at him for playing his music too loud. But then she didn't follow through. So she didn't do what a parent should do and stand up for her child and defend her child and protect her child. So she's not a good parent either for making a half-hearted attempt. But the acting in those scenes were heartbreaking, and for that reason also very, very good. And yeah, and then like everybody in the little Christian Bale, Oscar Wilde moment in the beginning were just very confusing to me. But for the I mourn the Oscar Wilde movie that never was. But yeah.
So, Tiff, your thoughts on the other performances?
So, Eddie Izzard as Jerry Devine was divine. Love that performance. It feels natural. It feels also over the top, and very much, we're gonna make you stop, baby, no matter what. I love that. I love that energy that Eddie puts into that character. I feel like they really embodied it and really put their all into it. Like Carla mentioned, she's very over the top in her, performances, and it really comes through in this, pretty, I guess, typical male dominated industry and a very masculine performance. It's an interesting shift. Yeah, Shannon, whatever, go away. Your haircut's stupid.
Yes.
We hate your haircut. Toni Collette. Mandy, when Brian first meets Mandy at that club, and I love that scene because it just sparkles. Mandy has on that, that sparkly shift dress, and it's very late 60s, very go-go. And I just love that scene where like he's trying to dance and I don't know what he's doing. It's pretty awkward. Like Brian, you need to, sweetie, baby, honey, you're gonna have to get a little lessons here and there because your rhythm was not there, sweets. But Mandy felt like very natural. You can tell like, hey, she's in this club and she's here to have fun, and this is not her first time. Whereas Brian is like, you can tell this is your first time in this club because you don't look like you know what you're doing. But I love when he's like, do you jive? And she's just like, do I jive? It's like I can jive in my sleep. And they start dancing, and I just love that. I love that moment because it's kind of that burst of first kind of crush, and I like the way it's a meet cute. I think it is. I feel like it's a meet cute, and it's unfortunate the way their relationship obviously devolves because of the celebrity and everything. And you would hope that they could have, even if they didn't work as a romantic couple, that they could have still worked as like maybe business partners or, just friends who happen to, to do business together. But alas, it wasn't meant to be with them. Shoot, broken heart. Anyway, but Toni Collette, like Carla mentioned, one of my favorite white lady actors. Just fantastic. I love Toni. I do. Toni, I love you. Everything that she does, I feel like she fits into that aesthetic. Every single character that she embodies, I feel like she fits into that aesthetic. Whether it's in Emma, the 1998, 97 or 98, whichever year it was, with that abysmal performance by Gwyneth Paltrow, but whatever, we don't talk about that.
We don't need to talk about. We don't talk about.
We're not going to go off on many more tangents.
Yeah. So Toni in that, fantastic, and it's rare that you find an actor that can bridge the gap from something that's set in the 18th century or the 19th century to something that is set in the 70s, the 1970s. Anyway, so love her. Love but the one thing that does bother me is with the way when Arthur comes to interview Mandy, I feel like Mandy, no matter what, is going to land on her feet. She is a cat. She is going to survive no matter what. So her being, you know, in that bar, and it's kind of like womp womp. It's very dark. You know, I don't feel like she's necessarily, she is sad, and when she recollects all of these things, she is sad. But I feel like her vivaciousness would have translated into her, into being her, you know, grown-up self, as confidence and security in who she is as this, you know, as an 80s woman. And I think she would have been very successful. I don't think that she would have been sitting in a bar like during the midday. That's just kind of my take on that. Ewan McGregor, you did the darn thing. I feel like you like basically embodied the name Kurt Wilde. Like, you were wild, sir. You showed us hard living. You showed us how a rock star is supposed to be, from taking off your pants and showing us all your dangly bits. Yeah, so great job, Ewan. I think that, oh, and Jonathan Rhys Meyers, who like had my heart in my mid-20s. Yes. Yes, that androgynous kind of look, it really works for him. And he, you know, from him trying to be the folk star to then being Brian Slade to then being Maxwell Demon, I thought he did a really great job. And good job on him and Ewan actually singing their own stuff, even if Jonathan Rhys Meyers' voice got dubbed over. So I'll stop.
I'll just briefly add for time. I think everybody does a great, fantastic job. I am really happy to know that everybody loves Ewan McGregor, because I love Ewan McGregor so much too. Oh, well, I guess I won't get my thoughts in.
love
Hi,
Ewan
Christian.
McGregor. I think he is wonderful. As are you. Hello, Erin.
Hi,
Hello,
Christian.
Tiff.
Hello,
How is
Christian.
everybody? It is wonderful to see you again on my month, even if I was not mentioned first in the cast of this
Sorry
movie,
about
Velvet
that.
Goldmine. It's okay. It's okay. I am a forgiving man, as I believe I have shown many a time. But it's wonderful to see you all. Please carry
You
on.
too.
Please sing Ewan's praises. If you see him, say hello for me.
I see him. That would be nice. If I see him.
You never know. I mean, he doesn't know who you know.
That's true. So yeah, I think everybody does a fantastic job. Ewan, Jonathan, Tony is always great. Eddie Izzard, everybody is just really fantastic in this cast. I can't think of anybody that does a bad job. Everybody's just completely in their characters, and they're just completely there. So yeah, so those are my little brief thoughts on the performances. I guess I don't know if that's all we're having from our special guest. I was not expecting him to
Probably
come on
not. I
then,
mean,
so I was not prepared at all. So anyway, we will take another. Oh wait, no. I don't know if this means he's coming on or not. I never know.
I do have
Hi,
one more
Christian.
thing to say. In this year of our Lord 2025, although we all hope for wonderful good things, we all, I believe, have the collective feeling of
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god, Christian!
And now that I have gotten that off my chest,
Wow! Wow, that was quite a selection of your picture there. Oh my
Wow.
I
god!
feel so much better. I can
Wow,
smile
Christian.
again. Oh, thank you for allowing me to have my say about the possibility of the year 2025.
Thank you, Christian, and thank
Fantastic.
you for joining us. I did want to ask you. Okay, I guess I want to ask you about your performance.
I haven't gone far. Please ask. Ask
I
away.
just want to ask you, and excuse my voice, Christian. I'm recovering from a cold.
It is a lovely voice.
Oh, thanks, Christian.
It sounds like you have lived many a fascinating life.
I don't know if you know this, but we can only see one of your eyes. Okay, there you go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was
Is
funny.
that better?
Yeah, you were just in the corner there. I just really quickly wanted to know. I know this was a long time ago. You filmed this. You were a young guy in his 20s. So what was this experience like? And I want to know, did you keep any of the outfits you wore? I know you didn't wear as many fantastical outfits, but did you keep like that green jacket or anything, or the scarf or anything? You are kind of sinking down, by the way.
Oh, I apologize. I'm just sitting here thinking so very deeply about your question. And I do drift sometimes when I'm thinking, when I am in deep, deep thought. But let me try to recall. I must give it a think for a moment. And oh, yes, I do remember now. First of all, I would like to address your claim about age. For if you didn't know, 50 is the new 15. I still have a joyous, boyish spirit.
Oh my God, I love it.
I am full of holiday cheer year round. Yes, every day can't be Christmas if you're allowed to be.
Christian, I love you.
Thank you, as I love you. But back to the question at hand. I will not admit or deny that I took anything from the wardrobe, whether it was mine or any other actors. Because you see, the wonderful costumes were not solely mine. There were many, many wonderful costumes, particularly something in white with maybe wings. But I shall elaborate no further.
Wow.
And this does not provide anybody consent to raid my closet. It does not count as an admission of guilt. I am simply stating that it is a lovely costume that if one were to take home, one would be, I believe, quite justified.
Okay, Christian. Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so
now
much
remember, if you do have anything to say about it, you must use the word allegedly for legal purposes.
It's true. You allegedly.
People may allege that I took a costume, but maybe I did, maybe I did not.
Oh my God, I love you so much. I'm sorry, I just get so much joy when we have you return. It's been so long.
Thank you. I have missed being here. I am so excited to be here back at Carla's lovely home with her child and his mum bucks. They have discontinued these of them, so they have given me all of them. I am now the sole proprietor of all of the mum bucks.
Wow, Christian, you made out.
I have moved up in the world. Yes, I have.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Between that and the marshmallows, you are a rich man.
I am very much winning. Yes.
And yeah, I know I will have so many more things. My brain, I apologize, everybody. My brain.
Please go take some Robitussin. Take it the way that it is done among my circles, which is you combine the appropriate serving for an adult of Robitussin along with a roughly, I would say, a cup of whiskey.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh, Christian.
It is only for medicinal purposes. I want to make very clear. And now I'm going to just speak as a non-professional medical person, for I have not licensed in this or any state or any country to prescribe or even suggest medication. However, I am simply giving you a life hack, as the kids say. And you may still smile like I do.
How much whiskey have you had today, Christian?
We needn't talk about my consumption, Nana. This is about you.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that. Well, Christian, I just want to say I am so glad to be celebrating you again. And I hope you enjoy the movies we have picked, because covering you is such a joy, such a complete, profound joy. And I believe it brings others joy as well. So thank you, Christian.
Thank you. I'm feeling shy now. But I appreciate your support and your appreciation of the art that I work so hard on most of the time.
Okay. Well, before you go, so we are going to do our last segment, 6 Degrees of Finn Whitrock, who you have starred in. We do a challenge with this where we can't use The Big Short since you were both in that together. So you're
That's
just 1
correct.
degree. You have been in the same movie with this man.
Not only that, I have also been in the same movie as one of your frequent panelists, Megan.
That's true. That's true. And you have been in the same movie as my future husband, Colin Farrell.
Why, yes, that is accurate. And don't worry, I am talking you up to Colin frequently. He blocked me on one number, but I think that was an accident. It's okay, I am testing him on a different number. He's so pleased to be hearing from me again.
He blocked you.
Again, I believe it was an accident. Let's not make specious claims here. Colin and I are good friends. I only text him every half hour or so.
Oh my gosh.
And yes, so there's a Welsh half hour, which is actually about 15 minutes, but that's neither here nor there. He enjoys my witty little bon mots, and he loves hearing me talk you up.
Well,
I just know it.
I appreciate that, Christian, since he's also in the Batman universe now too. So I appreciate that. Maybe ease up a little bit on the amount that you're contacting him. But
Oh, I suppose I can. For you, Erin, I shall.
thank you. But thank you for talking me up. I'm sure we will invite you to our future wedding.
I cannot wait. I already have an outfit picked out and everything. Carla's very graciously letting me keep it at her house.
That's so nice of her.
Isn't it though?
Yeah. So I did want to ask you though, I don't know if you didn't, you didn't. Did you do a 6 Degrees of Finn Whitrock?
Of course I did. I do that all the time. It is all I think of and dream of.
Colin Farrell.
And because I did not have many scenes with the delightful Toni Collette. However, I did absolutely do this ahead of time, and I'm not currently doing it now on Carla's desk. I can positively aver that Toni Collette was in the movie Let's Dance with Julia Roberts, who was in The Normal Heart with Finn Whitrock.
Very good, Christian.
Thank you. I planned this so far in advance, and I worked so hard at it.
You did. That was great, Christian.
Thank
you. So, my other panelists, anybody else play? I mean, Carla technically.
You know me. I don't do that.
You technically played though, so you helped Christian, I'm sure. So Tiff, did you play?
I did. So Jonathan Rhys Meyers was in Hide and Seek with Josh Alsher, who was in The Luckiest Girl Alive with Mr. Finn Whitrock.
Ooh, cool. I like that one. Yeah, cool.
So a short 2 degrees.
Mine is pretty short too. So I used Ewan McGregor. Like I guess many of us on this panel would like to do.
Hey.
And he was in the movie I Love You, Philip Morris, with Anjanou Ellis Taylor, who was in If Beale Street Could Talk with Finn Whitrock. So there, mine was short too. And I don't think we have ever used If Beale Street Could Talk, or maybe once. We very rarely use that. So I was happy to use that too. Okay. Well, since my voice is about to just completely go, I just want to thank Carla and Tiff, and of course, Christian, for joining me on the kickoff of Christian fucking Bale Month. I promise next week, my voice better damn well be back next week. I'm pissed. Well, we're going to close out, and I'm going to have my lovely panelists say where they can be found. And Carla can also tell you where you can find Bedwetter Behead Pod, which they did an episode a while back featuring 3 Christian Bale characters.
That's right. If you want a bail off, well, not a bail off, but if you want to see a bail triad, maybe a bail triangle, no, none of this is sounding very good. If you want to see us discuss three fantastic Christian Bale characters, along with Erin, please look for Bedwood Overhead Podcast wherever you found this podcast. Yes.
Exactly.
Also there too.
Yep.
You can find our social media presence wherever you get your socials. Look for Bedwood Overhead Podcast. You may or may not find us. It is a delightful treat if you do. You can look for me, my art, and my musings on TikTok and Instagram. Look for Carla Temis. You can also look for my website, carlatemis.com. That's CarlaTemis.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, Christian. All the Baleisms. You're doing a special episode. Christian Baleisms.
Yes.
We'll do that as a Patreon episode this month. So, Tiff.
So you can find me across all the socials at Who Is Tiff. Mainly, I'm on Discord talking up with the It's a Fandom Thing pod folks. Come check us out. We talk about pets, movies, books, TV, music. Paula, watching Finn Whitrock movies. Paula, have you been on top of your game?
No. Paula.
Oh, someone's in trouble.
Somebody's in trouble. But we talk about all the things. It's a lot of fun. Come join. It's the new year. It's the perfect time to do so.
Awesome. Thank you. And this is Erin. You can follow Fergie the dog, who was not really too into this movie. She actually fell asleep while watching it.
Not enough murder.
Yeah. You can follow her on TikTok at Schroeder and Fergs. That's SCHROEDERANDFERGS. It's long, but it's worth it. Be sure to like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/It's a Fandom Thing Pod. On Twitter at Fandom Thing Pod. No, it's that one. On Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky Social at It's a Fandom Thing Pod. If you have any feedback, show notes, if you'd like to be a potential interview guest on the show, please feel free to reach out to us via our website. It's a fandomthingpod.com. Click the contact us button there. That'll shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I promise my voice will eventually come back. And you can also become a Patreon supporter for as little as $3 a month. You get ad-free episodes a day early, and sometimes you get bonus episodes. Sometimes you win prizes. So click the link in the show notes or the support us tab on our website. And let me just quickly tell you how the rest of the Christian fucking Bale month is going to wrap up. It's going to shape up to be. I'm sorry. That was so badly told. Anyway, let me tell you how the rest of the Christian Bale month is going to go. So next week, it is Carla's pick, which is the movie The Promise. And then the week after that is Little Women, which was our panelist's choice. And then we're going to round it out with Shaft from 2000, which was the listener pick.
Can you dig
it? I'm talking about Shaft.
I'll have to find the interview, but I'm pretty sure Christian says in an interview the main reason he did that movie was because he wanted to work with, and I just like this because of what Christian's middle name is, but he said, because come on, I get to work with Samuel fucking Jackson. Something along those lines. I think I'm probably misquoting you, Christian, but it's something along those lines, and I just loved that. So yeah.
If he didn't say it out loud, he said it in his heart. So I think it counts.
Exactly. So that will be how we're going to talk about Christian. We're going to talk about, that's how we're going to celebrate Christian. And then of course we'll do birthday trivia later this month. So until next time, remember, it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate, and free Palestine.